guess we can move on to the next story, which is the Thousand Oaks shooting at the Borderline Bar and Grill. Oh, excuse me. Okay. Yeah, for those of you not unfamiliar, I mean, because I know like the fire news has been dominating the news cycle. But yes, on last Wednesday, a shooter, went into the Borderline Bar and Grill in Thousand Oaks, wearing a black, hoodie and a beanie, and using smoke grenades, shot up the Borderline Bar and Grill, killing 12 people, and it's not confirmed whether or not he took his own life. But with the shooter, it'd be 13, but no one counts the shooter because he's a shithead. 12 people dead, another dozen or so injured, including a sheriff's deputy, who was planning on retiring the following year. And this is a tragedy, and again, it affects me because it's, it happened right in my backyard. So, we were going to have to talk about it. Being so close to where I live, and I even know people who have been to that bar in the past. And, people are sharing their memories of it and just, feeling shaken and feeling a sense of, kind of, the peace was broken in their minds, and they couldn't believe that a shooting happened so close to home. Because when you think, when you hear, so far when we hear about shootings, they've happened so far away. I mean, with the like in Las Vegas or Baltimore or Connecticut or what have you. I mean, in recent history, with this shooting, and then there's also San Bernardino, and then there's also, technically it was in LA because it happened at LAX, the TSA agent who was shot and killed. So there's like 3 shootings that happened, or at least major shootings that happened in Los Angeles. I mean, I don't know. Someone can correct me. I would like to know. And one of the things that I didn't like, about this situation was, this attack had just about happened, and all of a sudden there was already like initial articles written up about it, and they had the shooter's name and some of his history. He was a Marine. He did a tour in Afghanistan, but then they made the implication that he might have had PTSD. And when I read that, I didn't like it at all. Because it just it demonized and just puts a blanket. It just made a blanket statement about a group of people. How they're just one bad day away from becoming mass shooters, when that's typically not the case, especially those who were in the military, because the real threat for them is self-harm, because the instances of suicide amongst former military personnel is very high. I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but it is very high. And really, the danger is not them turning the gun against someone else. It's the real danger is them turning the gun on themselves. So just so you know, and I remember reading that article, and I was just very upset that the the reporter journalist made that implication, made that connection. And I remember even having a discussion with somebody, kind of heated, because uh, because he said like, oh well, it's not, because the journalist had used the word possibly. Said, oh, the gunman could have possibly had PTSD, or this could have possibly been PTSD related. Um, and I remember my friend, he was saying like, oh, well, that's not so bad because they used possibly. They didn't say that was it was linked. It was definitely linked to PTSD. And I was trying to explain to him that like, well, that's not fair because now just the scent of PTSD is going to make everyone who has it or is struggling with it, or even has some sort of uh, psychological, mental, emotional challenges as these potential killers. And I don't think that's fair to do so. It's it's kind of like back in the late 30s, early 40s, when they interned Japanese Americans simply because they were Japanese Americans. Because they look like the enemy. They use whatever justification that they needed, like national security, or oh, these are even though they're a lot of them were American citizens, they're like, oh, well, they look like that our enemy, and I'm sure that they have ties to they like still have family members in Japan, so they can be easily turned against us, and they could be used as like a fifth column in the U.S. to try and overthrow us or what have you. I mean, that was a justification, but that's kind of like the same. That's the same thing that's going on with this guy. I'm not trying to defend the shooter, especially since it came out later. Like I think in his Twitter, don't don't quote me on this, but I do think he was a disturbed individual. I think some of his Twitter history came out and talking about like just before he just before he went in to shoot up the bar, he put up like a few posts saying you know kind of some nihilistic things. Uh, particularly about like his motives, like oh watch these idiots try to come up with a reason why I did this and stuff like that. Um, but I don't think it's fair uh, for that journalist to make a blanket statement, even like it wasn't even a statement, but like to make the implication that because this, make the implication that possibly this person had PTSD, some sort of mental or emotional disorder, and therefore, he's a killer, linking this killer to every other person who might suffer from PTSD or struggle with it, or yada yada yada. And and then it's just one of those things where like that'll be that'll be the reason why. That'll be the excuse that they use to try and take away people's guns. You know, even though it doesn't say anywhere in the Constitution, where like you have to pass a mental check. It's like no, it's like it's in the Constitution. The right to bear arms shall not be infringed upon. That's it. That's it. Like the government has no say in what kind of whether you have a gun or not. That's it. The government shall not infringe. And this, and again, this is going to be an unpopular stance to take, but I think if we had less, I mean, because people are going to say like we need more gun after something like this, they're going to say we need more gun laws, we need more gun laws. It's like, well, how many more laws do we need? Because particularly in California, I do believe California has the strictest laws, gun laws in the country. So I mean, what more laws do we need? Because we have every conceivable law. We have the mandatory background check. We have the we have they say because they said that he had an extended magazine for his pistol, but those are already outlawed. They're banned. They're illegal. That was an illegal magazine. And then if he did buy the guns legally, if he did purchase the guns legally through an FFL dealer, then he had to have gone through a background check, and he had to have passed that background check if he got the gun legally. Then for a pistol, there's a mandatory, I think, 4-day waiting period, or maybe even a week in California. So he did all those things. And yet this tragedy still happened. I think we tried it. We tried it we tried the rules ways. Like, let's just impart all these rules, and we'll be safe. We tried that, and this still happened. Maybe we should loosen the laws. I don't know. It's just an idea. I mean, we kind of people nowadays kind of scoff at the idea of like mutually assured destruction. Like if you're crazy enough to go into a place where people are armed, and you still want to shoot up that place, then you're an idiot and you deserve to die. Because if you know that a place is, that you're gonna go into, and there's a good percentage of people that are going to be armed and will be able to fire back at you, then you deserve to die. And you still want to go ahead through with your attack and shoot up the place, then you deserve to die. Because one, you're an idiot, and that's one less idiot in the world, and two, you deserve to die because or you were suicidal in the first place because you knew that that was the potential outcome. I'm particularly passionate about this. That one because of freedom, and two because I myself will never have the privilege. Will never have the privilege of defending myself. I'll never be able to. I mean, not while I'm living in California, but even if I move into a very liberal state, with loose gun laws like Montana or Arizona or Texas, where they have like, you can have open carry or you can have concealed carry. I'll never have that privilege of defending myself. So I'm trying to have as many good guys with guns around me as possible because I want my ass protected.